You are listening to the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, episode 90. This is the one where I get to interview my friend and actress, Maggie Lawson. We talk all about following your dreams and how to celebrate giving yourself me time. Let's dive in. This is a podcast for overthinkers, overdoers, and overachievers who are tired of feeling overanxious and just want to feel better. I'm your host, certified life coach, Jackie DeCrenis. I am super excited about my guest today. This guest has been an actress for almost her entire life, but she is best known for her iconic role as Detective Juliet O'Hare. Now, in the hit show Psych, which is a show that I was part of when I was at the USA Network, and it ran for 8 seasons, and they have since done 3 movies without me.
Yay for the movies. Boo without Jackie.
No. It's all good. And she is now not only still an actress and also one of my favorite people in the world. She is the host of not one, but 2 podcasts. One is called The Psychologists Are In with her co-host and dear friend and co-star, Tim Amundsen. And the other is called Me Time.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of both podcasts because they are both very much like just spending time with her, which always feels like you're spending time with an old friend. And with that, I want to introduce you to my old friend, Maggie Lawson.
You're going to make me cry, Jackie. That's so nice. I feel the exact same way. It's so weird. I feel like we just have like this soul thing. From the day I met you, I just feel like even if time goes by and we don't see each other for a while, I sit down with you and it's like I'm sitting down with my like best friend, like one of my.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I totally feel the same way. And I have been so honored to have been on both of your podcasts before, The Psychologists Are In and Me Time. And I'm like, wait a minute. I shouldn't be on these. You should be on mine. And so finally I get the pleasure of turning around guest and host, and I get to be the host and host you this time.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm so happy to see you. And I'm just so happy to talk to you. And I would just like to, I can't imagine anybody who listens to my podcast doesn't know sort of that I was in television before, but moreover, I very rarely ever run into anybody who doesn't know what Psych is and the 8 seasons of Psych that ran on USA Network and now on Amazon, and I think also on Peacock. But I would love to do is just kind of give them your backstory, and then we'll catch up to like what you're up to today. But will you just tell our audience like the whole thing about like how did you even come to become an actress and move to LA and all the things?
Oh my God, Jackie. Okay. Yes. I'll like take a breath because I actually haven't told this story or talked about this in a while.
Love it. It's like an exclusive.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes. So I did my first play when I was 8 years old.
Oh my God.
I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. And that was kind of it for me, honestly. I feel like I was really lucky because at 8 years old, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But obviously, that was at 8. And I got really, really, really lucky in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky to work with amazing people and kind of continue after that. That was at our like summer theater, like our amphitheater.
Yeah.
The musical theater of Louisville is what it was called. And so from there, it was just because I enjoyed it so much, I would like audition for other things. And then my whole childhood, I really was doing plays at our dinner theater and then this theater and our children's theater in Louisville. And when I was like 12, I remember showcases, Jackie. Do you remember like, okay, maybe not, maybe actors, I don't know. So, okay.
No, absolutely. Showcases were done all the time in Hollywood. People invited you to a showcase and you did either a monologue or skits or several skits or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So the showcases were, I guess they were touring. There were touring showcases that would just go to cities too, where they would invite local people, talent, whatever, to come do the same exact thing, read a monologue. They might make you cold read something, whatever it was. And there would be casting directors and agents and people like that there. And I went to one when I was 12 and I ended up reading a scene from a sitcom. I don't remember. I just remember a guy gave my mom his card and was like, if you ever come to LA, call me. He said he was an agent at an agency in LA. I knew nothing about it. We knew nothing about it. And this goes back so far. My mom put his card in her cigarette holder
Oh my goodness.
She had like this gold cigarette.
Yeah.
And so this was what, 92? And didn't think about it again, really. I think we had a conversation. My family, we did not have the means to be planning or going to LA anytime soon or whatever. So it was something that I think we kind of dreamed about for a second. And then I was like, I want to be a kid and just like play softball and do my plays here or whatever. It just felt really big and scary, I think, to all of us. But a couple years went by, and a director I was working with in a play in Louisville, I'm now 15. And I tell him this story about this showcase I went to. And he was an actor. He was such an incredible, I still know John. He's wonderful. He's a director and actor, and he had been working in LA. He'd been going back and forth for years. And he's been in some movies and TV shows. And so John was a little bit of a celebrity too, but he asked my mom, he's like, do you mind if do you still have that card that the agent gave you? And
it's literally been in her cigarette case for 3 years?
3 years.
Oh my God.
Mom still has the card. My mom
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, moms, like you just it's just like she saved it. It was like a special day. And I don't know why after years and years, like she didn't feel the need to, we just didn't throw it away. I don't know. Maybe she knew something. But my mom said, as we were telling him the story, can I see the card? And it was this agent. So the card was Jeff Witches from William Morris Agency. Do you know Jeff? Yeah. Okay,
I know of him.
Yeah. And John flips out. And he's just like, are you kidding me? This is a major agency.
Yeah.
Like, if this is whatever. So he freaks out and we're like, we didn't know. And so again, we were not really in a position. I had been lucky enough to have been like I was doing these I was like a local kids journalist on our Fox station there. And I was lucky enough to have like made a teeny bit of money, but enough to get like a plane ticket. And my mom, had enough to get a plane ticket at the time. And so we were like, well, if we could go out, should we call this guy? Should we
3 years later. Yeah.
3 years later, Jackie.
As you're scraping the tobacco, off
of the card. I just can see it perfectly. I see like the logo and my mom's gold case and whatever. Anyway, I get on the phone. I call the William Morris Agency at 15 years old, and I say, hi, I'm sure I have my Southern accent. I'm like, my name is Maggie Lawson. I met one of your agents 3 years ago, and he said to give him a call if I was ever going to come to LA, and my family's thinking about it, and blah, blah, blah. So the person's like, okay, I'll patch you through. So now I'm to his assistant.
Yeah.
He takes my call.
That's amazing. Did he remember who you were, or he just took it because he's a nice guy?
He took my call. Well, I told the assistant the story. The assistant passes it on to him. I remember all of this like it was yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
And he was like, they're like, hold on a second. And he picks up the phone. He's like, hello, Jeff Witches, whatever. And he's like, look, if I gave you my card, I will meet you if you do come to LA.
Wow.
I will stand by that. And obviously there was something there, whatever. And I tell John this. And anyway, so one thing leads to another. We finally get a trip out to LA. And there are lots of little pieces in here. Of course, I'm leaving a lot of it out. But one thing led to another in that I met Jeff Witches, who was like, you're very green and I'm not going to sign you. But if you need any help or guidance, let me know while you're here. It was a spring break I was on. And if I can, vet anyone for you that you might meet or he was so kind. He's like, and then when you get some work under your belt, come back to me.
Yeah.
And so John had a good friend who was a casting director. So I had another meeting set up when I came out, which was this casting director, Fran Bascom, who cast The Days of Our Lives. Fran agreed to meet with me because she and John were friends and he set it up. And she had me read 2 scenes cold in her office when I met her and called this woman, Ro Diamond, and said, I just met this girl from Kentucky and I had to read a couple of scenes and I think you should meet her. And I went and I met Ro probably the next day. And Ro was my agent for 10 years.
Wow.
I went and met her. And then to how I actually got here, we had no idea what any of it meant, what was happening.
Sure.
We can choose to leave this in or not. I mean, my family at the time was, poverty level. This whole world was it just seemed like a fantasy almost. We just had no idea what to expect or what we were doing. And Ro was really wonderful and was like, if you could audition for this or that. I ended up auditioning for something immediately. I ended up getting like a test deal for it, which to this day, I'm like, was this just a favor that like Roe called in? It was a show called Unhappily Ever After that was on the WB when the WB was the new network or whatever.
Yeah.
They wanted to test me for this character they were adding. I knew I wasn't going to get it, but we did the whole test thing. It was crazy. And she managed to get me a holding deal with the WB, and the WB put me in another pilot.
Yeah.
So that holding deal funded my entire, like my junior year of high school in Louisville. I went back and forth like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Happily Ever After called and had me do a couple of episodes. Anyway, got my SAG card, had this whole deal.
Amazing.
And then they put me in a pilot. They tell me the pilot is on the air. It was Miller Boyette at the time, who had like a ton of success and like whatever.
Sure.
And so they're like, it's sold, it's on the air. I don't know if this is going to make any sense to anybody, but us. There's also all of the crazy in between family and like emotional, like it was really intense, this like time in our lives. And we were like, this pilot I was put into was a sold series on the air. And me and my mom and my brother packed up like a Woody station wagon. I did the pilot, but it was going to be on the air. So I needed to we had to move because it was shoot. And my mom, brother, and I drove out here over like the course of a week in 1997. And after we got here, they said that they had changed their mind about the show.
Right.
It was no longer on the air or even going to go.
It's so heartbreaking and not unusual. I mean, people need to understand statistically, it's like unbelievable that anything ever goes on the air or stays on the air or anything. So yeah,
it was a very quick lesson of what can happen. And we didn't know any better. And everyone did the best they could in the situation. And my family stayed. We ended up staying. I think all of us maybe were curious about a different life, or I don't want to say a better life, but just, leaving Kentucky and starting something kind of new. And later my older brother came out and I continued luckily to get like a guest star here and there and, over time make a little bit of money. And then that was that. And then
amazing.
I did like a pilot a year, which was also really helpful, like financially. And then one ended up going on UPN for like 10 episodes. And then a few years later, I got another one. And it was a couple years after that I got Psych. So we're spanning like a 9-year period that got me to Psych. But that's how I got to LA. Of course, many, like I said, so many other, the best story actually that I probably should tell this version of it was that everyone kept telling me I looked like the girl in the Aerosmith videos and Clueless movie, Alicia Silverstone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I absolutely can see that.
Yeah, when I was in high school.
I didn't know she was in Aerosmith videos. I don't know how I didn't know that. I absolutely know. Yeah.
2 pretty like, a couple of really hot videos, whatever. So they became very popular and everyone kept telling me I looked like her. And my brother was at a little barbershop in Kentucky and he read, in fact, this is the moment that we actually were like, how would I go to LA and audition for something? He read in a magazine, like a People magazine at our local little barbershop in our neighborhood that was called Cut Me Loose. That they were looking for an Alicia Silverstone lookalike for the Clueless series. If you remember, they did that for a little while. That they were doing. And they ran in the door. He stole the magazine from the place. He like runs in the door and he was like, this is it.
This is it. This is the sign. This is the sign.
Which is what led us to like call John. I mean, that is how naive, like we had no idea.
But so let me stop you there for a second. And I don't want to step on the run of the story because it is so fun. And I love origin stories. And I love hearing how, to me, there is nothing more fun than somebody having a dream and not even knowing what that dream entails. One of the things I talk about in coaching all the time is not so much the how, but the why. Meaning when you have a dream, what's the why for you? And then if you have a clear why, like because I love acting, or because it seems wonderful to pretend to be somebody else, or because I've always wanted to go to California, or because I just want to express myself, or I want to entertain people, or I want to pick people up, whatever the why is. The why, when it's so clear for you in anything you do, the how shows up.
Finds its way.
Yeah. And now
Totally.
you can't lay in bed and be
No.
like,
No,
I
because
want
it's a part of the how is,
the
and part of
doing.
the why is the momentum of the doing. So
Yes. So
even if
yes,
it's
you do need to be taking acting classes or show up as the Munchkin and Wizard of Oz at your local theater when you're 8. And you do need to go to the showcases when they're available. And you do need to take the business card of the person. And you do need to call them. Like you do need to do the how, but you don't need to know the how when you're creating the why, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
And what
that's
I love is that
amazing.
you had the why, which was I love this. I like being on stage, or I like performing, or I like it's fun.
Feeling. I felt like I was like, you get to explore these other parts of yourself through playing these other people. Like it was just wild to me. Like the whole thing of it was so crazy. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I still love it.
I know.
I love every part of it. Yeah.
And I love watching you love it. Like I love,
Oh,
that's why I love watching you as an actress, because you're so committed to your characters. You're so much fun to watch. You never feel like you're acting. It's just like, it just is. It's just so seamless. And you're like that as a human being. Every conversation is easy. You're so fun. You're so soulful. But so I love, thank you.
I mean, my God, that's why but thank you. That's like, what? That's so nice, especially coming from you. You're like, I look up to you. Yeah, yeah, I do.
So anyway,
Oh,
I love
yeah.
these stories. They're my favorite. My favorite is I had no idea about Hollywood, or I had no idea about this profession that I saw it or whatever. And I love hearing, I've interviewed, so many different people from so many different disciplines, from authors to yoga instructors to actors to professional surfers. And I love hearing, like, how did they find their path? Like, how did they fall in love with their craft, or how did their craft
Find them almost.
find them?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So thank you, because I love that story. And what I love, actually, when you say, well, we didn't know anything, I didn't know how hard it is to break into Hollywood. That's kind of what I love too, is the innocence and just the pure passion.
Yeah.
Was your drive. I just love it. Okay. So
also,
I love that your family also supported you and like moved here, because you were a teenager. You couldn't really do it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, I did my senior year of high school through correspondence. My school even supported me to come. But yeah, my mom and my brother, I mean, it's when I think back on it now, also when I think about like my mom being basically my age now with 3 kids. One, my older brother came later, but 2 kids that one of them's like, I want to act for a living. Something her family didn't, and my younger brother being like, all right, I guess if there's a school out there, I'm done with Kentucky too, and I'll go. And everybody like, what? And then my mom, I think about like what she did being my age now, having 2 teenage kids and making that happen. And also this, like you were talking about, the doing and like the how. I think also part of it was like, I literally could see it. Like I would dream about it, and not in a way, but I have to credit my mom for that. And our house, it was like, nothing was off the table. If it could be dreamt, it was like, then dream it. And it was never like, oh, that could never happen, or that, there was always some kind of, I don't know, support for that I was allowed to even go there in my own imagination, and then have all this, like, it was, it's funny.
But I imagine that's also because you had a great work ethic in everything you did, whether that was in academics or athletics or even friendships. Like you're such a follow through kind of person. You're such an upstanding person. And I think that when you show that kind of conviction in life, I think it's much easier. I mean, I have 3 kids, so I know that for me, where I was probably the most supportive was where there was effort being made, right? So if one kid had a particular passion, something, right? Not necessarily something like this, but I wanted to support them where I could, because I loved that they had passion for that. And that didn't mean they were going to make a living doing it, right? That's okay.
Yeah, but that's okay. It also like, it's almost like a muscle. Like if you can go there, even if it's not the thing you end up doing, if it's not you learn after step 12, it's not for you. That's okay.
Yes,
Like
totally.
I love hearing that. And you know what? I will actually relate this to psych too, and you. and this freedom that we had, that you gave us, and support to sort of like find the show rather than like telling us what it needed to be or fitting into some category or like whatever it was. You gave us the freedom to be as big and wild and find it and turn psych into like what it became, which was like, I mean, I look at some of these episodes now, Jackie, as we're like watching the podcast, and I'm like, who let us do this? Like, this is magic. It's so cool. Like we did a live show this weekend and we were just talking about
talk about that tour. So let's just step back for a second. Let's talk about what you're doing like right now. So you and Tim go.
Yeah. We're so lucky. We are on one city we can't announce yet, I think, but like a 9 to 10 city tour with the psychologists are in. We are hitting a bunch of Comic-Cons. The first one we actually did was in San Francisco this weekend, which was at Sketchfest, which has been around forever, and it's wonderful. And we did it last year, which is sort of how all of this kicked off, even because Tim, with everything Tim has been through.
So my audience may not know Tim, so you need to kind of just like back up and explain all the things.
So Timothy Amundsen is my partner in the podcast. He was also my partner on Psych, which Jackie and I have been talking about for 8 years and plus movies. We were all best friends anyway, but Tim and I were very much like, he's the best. Oh, he's just the best. Anyway.
He is so dear and so wonderful. And again, partner on the show, partner on the podcast. Tim has an actual wife and kids.
Oh, like not yes. Tim has an actual, partner on the show.
But partner on the show and partner in the podcast. Yes.
Literal detective partners. And he's my co-host, partner on the podcast. And we were about to do our first movie in 2017, a reunion movie of Psych. It had been off the air for a few years. And right before Tim had a massive stroke in April of 2017. And honestly, I mean, this is his story to tell.
Yeah. And I'm going to have him on the podcast and tell the story.
Wonderful. So. It was real bad for a while. Like we didn't know anything, didn't know even if like Tim would still be here. And he has talk about like a spirit, man. Like this guy is such a warrior. He's so incredible. And what he's had to overcome and fight through and believe in, as you were talking about, like you have to believe, you have to like in the how, like Tim is one of these people, like he will, Jackie, I'm telling you, in the next like 2 years, the projects that he already has like laid the seeds for that are going, oh my God, it's like
so cool.
But last year we went to San Francisco, did Sketchfest. It was our first live. I mean, we've done the safety of our Zoom and podcast studio, but we were on stage live doing this podcast. It was like the muscle memory of that for him. Everything came back and clicked. He was so nervous, but he was, as he was magic on stage. Like it was incredible. Wow. And we had such a good time. So much so that after Allison, his wife, and the woman who's been sort of leading the charge in this tour that we're doing, was like, we have to be on stage and Tim needs to be on stage. Like, and also over the last year, we can decide whether we want to leave this in or not, but like his healing, like his progress, he sends me his like progress report every week when he does a walk and he listens to our podcast and he'll send me the steps that he did. And like, Jackie, he was going from like, a quarter mile, which is amazing, to like, he's like walking 2 miles now. While he's listening to these things. Like, it's just been incredible. So anyway.
It's amazing. So it's like he's healing by doing what he loves.
I think so, in that, like, at least what I have seen being so close to him, and again, this is all for him to share, but as a witness to him and his healing, which is also just, Tim is a walking warrior, spirit, miracle, like you name it. Like to be around him and sort of witness it. It's just really powerful and what he's done. But over this like last year or so, and then when we do these live shows, from his singing, his voice is back, it's coming back, like all of those things that I think he was like, well, I don't know if that will happen. I just need to, but his dream is to sing on stage with me at some point. And I know that we're going to do that at one of our shows. Like that's what's going to happen. But the point of all of this is to say last year, something really magical happened on stage when we were at Sketchfest. And a woman who is like our sort of talent booker agent for these shows and Comic Cons and whatever, she was like, I think we need to get you all in, like, we need to get a tour together. And here we are a year later, we're about to go out on.
Amazing. How old is the Psychologists Are In podcast?
2021, we premiered a little over 2 years.
And then the live tour has been just this last year.
Yeah, we did only 2 shows last year. We did it in Detroit and San Francisco. But from the experience we had in Detroit, these Comic-Con shows that are happening across the US have booked us separately to come and have our own like live show or live theater or whatever to do these shows. It's really insane.
Amazing. And so much fun.
Honestly, even just this weekend in San Francisco, like it's so much fun because we get to be together, but also we're talking about like the greatest time. And I'm not going to say, well, there will be many other great times, but like this time in our lives on Psych was truly magical. And so we get to also like share and relive all of that. Like it has such a heartbeat.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I love that it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So, okay. So there's that. So there's the weekly podcast.
Yeah.
And then there's now the live tour.
Yes. Atlanta is next. Richmond, Indianapolis, Oklahoma City, Columbus, San Jose. I know I'm forgetting some. That's not 10. And then one I can't announce yet. Oh, Seattle, I can say.
But I feel like you should be in Louisville, no?
Yes. So it's funny because
that's where it all began.
This is my own thing. So there's a thing I'm trying so hard. It's like Louisville's Coachella, and it's become massive now. It's called Bourbon and Beyond.
Love it.
And trying to get them to do live. So it's mostly music, but I'm trying to get them to do a couple live like stage shows or recordings or whatever, because or even during like the Kentucky Derby time or something.
Yeah.
Like get in there. Yeah. So maybe not here, but it's on the list for sure.
Okay. So there's that piece of Maggie Lawson. That's the current events there. Mm-hmm. Then let's talk about, I know also you're acting and you're auditioning and there's lots on the horizon in that you can't yet announce, but let's talk about your other podcast, Me Time.
Me Time. Yeah. Which you did. You did both.
I did both. But I love Me Time because it so speaks to what I do for a living now, which is focusing on self-care, self-awareness, self-compassion, self, not selfish, but self-love.
Yeah.
And I love that you decided to do this and create an audience of other, I presume, men and women, but probably mostly women, because women tend to be a little bit more focused on those kinds of things, to give them permission to focus on themselves and to engage with experts and laymen and all kinds of people about how they
take care of themselves.
Celebrate. Yeah, take care of themselves. I was going to say celebrate their me time. So talk to me about like the origin of that podcast. And I want you to kind of nutshell for me what your definition of me time is.
Oh, I love that. It probably started as a need to get away from people, or because I have a tendency to be a pleaser, or I'd feel drained. And so I would need to almost like hibernate or like go away for a little bit to sort of restore. That's probably how it all began. But what came out of it was I now cherish that time. I hold it so close. I know that I have to have it. It's like medicine for me, even if it's just like a few minutes, even if it's just, and sometimes it's more than that. These were the things I was thinking about when I was putting the podcast together, is it could be extravagant, like taking a trip for a couple weeks by myself somewhere, or it can be 5 minutes of sitting on my balcony in the sun and getting something from just being present in that moment that kind of propels me through the rest of the day. I don't know. It always just feels like a nice gift. So when I was doing the podcast, to be honest with you, I wasn't really setting out to make a lifestyle podcast or anything like that. It was more kind of talking to Sim, who runs the company, the podcast company I'm with. And just throughout conversations we were having, we're like, where is this podcast of you like talking about, I was pitching them ideas all the time, but they're like, about you just sort of talking about this. Like, I think I had just gone somewhere by myself for a little while or whatever. And was talking about what I get from those alone experiences. And by the way, I don't want to say like me time has to be alone time. I think me time is connective time with people. It's sort of what fills the bucket and your soul. Right. So the definition there really isn't one. It's just what that is for you and making sure you give yourself the time and space to do it. So the podcast was like, well, I'm going to share this because it's a big part of my life. It's also a huge fear of mine to talk about myself or to share these sort of intimate parts of myself. And so I wanted to also face that fear a little bit.
Yeah.
And see where that went. And then having, as you were saying, like experts on, and also just like discovering, like part of my me time is like, I just want to learn about a new thing. It could be something like, how to cook something properly or how to wine. I've had a lot of wine people on because I love wine, or actual healers and people who are like experts in this field. And so it just started happening, Jackie. Like, I just was like, all right, I think I have an idea. So I first started talking to friends because I love the idea of talking to some of my friends who were actors or celebrities in a sense that like, sharing sort of what they do to stay okay and healthy in their time. And from that just came really interesting conversations. And now I'm just like, it's just like kind of flowing and I'm learning so much from people. And then I also find like when I share things, even if I'm afraid to or it feels super vulnerable, I usually hear from people like, thank you for sharing this thing. And I'm like, oh, sharing actually, it helps other people and it can be, make other people feel less. I feel that way. When I hear someone share something that's like revealing or, an intimate part of themselves, or even if it's a funny story or a serious story or whatever it is, there's always this like connection. I don't know. Anyway, that's such a long answer, Jackie.
No, it's a great answer. So, but one of the things you said before on the episode where we talked, you said your me time changes all the time, which I appreciate, right? And it needs to. I mean, some things I talked about this, like my daily habits, and I'm kind of a broken record on that. But so I have some things that are what I refer to as my non-negotiables, my foundational sort of systems that I do every day. And that's just how I sort of anchor my brain and stay grounded. Yeah. But then me time, to your point, changes because sometimes you need a vacation by yourself and sometimes you need 5 minutes in the sun and sometimes you need to be with friends.
People.
And that's people. Yeah. And I'm just curious with this tour that you're doing, because I know that can be so exhausting and exhilarating, right? There's nothing more amazing than being with fans, people who love your work, asking you questions. You're making their day. You might be making their whole life, like to meet you and hear your stories. That's so fills your cup, but it also is very draining to be with people who need you and love you and flying and staying in hotels and all the things. So with this tour, I don't need to ask you why you're doing it because I know how fun and amazing it is. And not to mention spending time with Tim on stage. But how are you getting your me time away from the stage when you have, I used to have a holistic doctor who used to say, you can't pour out all your chi meaning life energy, right? You have to like rein it back into, and Maggie just picked up her brand new puppy who is
he was about to start
so cute.
He is. I mean,
sorry, we have to just have a moment to just like see this little puppy, which nobody's going to see because I don't do video, but trust me, he's really cute. So now that you're on this tour and you're running around from city to city, hotel to hotel, airports, all the things, how or what are you doing for your me time during this tour?
Well, honestly, that's such a good question because I feel like in the midst of it, so obviously in my downtime, I will, if I'm home, I usually need like a full day after one of those.
Understood.
Which I can't always get, right? So like that, which I like, and most people can't, but ideally what I will do is I will try to clear the schedule for like a day or so just to have a little breathing time, because it's also, Jackie, you nailed it. Like I find like the experience is so magical to me to be there with Tim, to talk about psych, to meet all of these people. It is really, yes, it can be overwhelming with all of the people, but the feeling is actually like, it's really moving. It's really touching. So I also like to just have a little time, usually on the plane. That's when I'll do it. But I'll just like look back at all the photos and I'll like kind of like relive it a little bit and just like take in like this crazy thing that we get to do. Also, it feels so different. I feel so lucky because like I've been acting my whole life. And then this is kind of something different and it's scary. And so there's also that exhilarating part that's like, oh, we did it. We actually did it.
Yeah.
But when I'm in it, that's when I'm more like, if I can carve out, let's say, for example, we finish our day at 5.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people that are going to go to dinner, right?
Okay.
And probably get some drinks and have a great time. And, we're in the city and it's these, we're having a ball. I will either be very late to that or I will leave very early from that. I'm totally giving away to the people I'm spending time with because I have to go be in my own space.
I get that.
A little while.
I get that.
So if everyone's like, let's change and I'll meet, I'll be like, oh, I have, I have something I have to do or I have a call or whatever. And Jackie, sometimes I swear to God, this is terrible. I'm going to say this. Sometimes that for me is going and sitting and having a glass of wine and doing a crossword puzzle at the bar just for like an hour to totally come back, be me, feel like me, and then I can go do whatever it is I can do, even if it's like a block away.
Yeah.
So that's usually what it is. It also might be if there is a bathtub, I'll do a literal wash off of the day. Like I'll just lay there and imagine like I'm just sort of cleansing and clearing, and then I can go and I can be whatever it needs to be. So I try not to, it's not even just like the time in between like the trips, like during the actual experience.
Yeah.
The other thing I do is I generally don't eat with anyone. So like I might eat with like Tim and Allison, but like when we have our little lunch break, even during those things, I will go find a quiet corner and I will just listen to music. I'll eat whatever I need to eat and I'll just sort of zone out for a minute. I mean, it's not like I'm going and meditating or it's something really simple usually that I just have to feel like myself.
So let me just comment on that because meditation is one of my go-to foundational elements. But it's something I do in the morning when the world is still very quiet. That's not to say you can't meditate in the middle of the day, the afternoon, the evening, like whatever. Yeah. Whatever time you feel you can meditate is great. I just happen to like that stillness of the morning. That's just when I'm most receptive to meditation.
I don't meditate, but that is my time. Jackie, I had times where my call time was like 5:30 and I would get up at 3:30 or 4.
In the morning, you're talking about?
The hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for that
to have the stillness.
Yeah.
But so whether it's meditation or it's a shower or it's a bath or it's a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle, I do Sudokus and I also like Wordle and Quirtle and New York Times Connections. Like that's also part of my morning.
You do them all. Yeah.
I do them all. In fact, that's part of my morning routine because it just like clears my brain. But it's one of my favorite things to do is to sit and do a puzzle.
Me too.
For just a little bit. And so I would call that hitting the reset button. And however you can hit the reset button so that you can then go plug in back to your social group or your work life or whatever it is. I think it's really important. I think what happens is, it's like the law of physics, right? So when you spin a top, it spins in one direction, right? So all you have to do is like give it like 1 or 2 spins and then it keeps going. And what happens is we don't ever stop once we start spinning. We just go, 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 go.
That's a good way to put it. Right.
And I think it's super important. And everybody's capacity is different, right? So some people it's an hour and some people it's days, but it's important to recognize your limits and you're so good at it. But to say, I need a timeout.
Yeah.
Without any negativity, without any judgment, without not self-judgment, not judgment from others. I need a timeout. And because I don't want to make anybody feel bad about my timeout, I'm not going to tell them I need to get away from you for a half hour. You're just like, I got to make a call.
Yeah. I just got something I gotta do for a little bit. So I'll say that. I'll just be like, I gotta, make a call. I gotta return some email. I might have a Zoom. I don't know what it might be, but if I need that, yeah. Because I do think sometimes, well, is that a white lie? I
No,
mean, it's
no,
not.
no,
I probably
I
did
don't think so
phone call
because,
in that time.
well, I guess in the sense that you're not telling them I need a timeout, but you don't need to tell them you need a timeout.
Honestly, on this trip, sometimes most people kind of get it. If you do say something like, I need like an hour, go eat, I'll meet you there. Like, I need to
Yes.
like shake off the day. A lot of people do understand that, but like you're usually it will be, yes, I'll just say I gotta make a call and I'll see you guys.
Love it. I
Yeah.
love that. That is
Yeah.
such good self-care.
Thanks, Jackie.
That is
I
such
guess
good
I
self-care.
have to, or
Meanwhile, I just have to tell the audience because they can't see, like your dog, as you're sitting here doing this interview, has literally fallen asleep practically in your
yeah,
arms because
yeah.
you're so calm and so, oh my God,
You're so
it's just the
sweet, Jackie.
cutest thing.
He is just like, I just hit the jackpot. I can't believe I just like adopted this little one like little over a month ago. And it's just like he's always been here. Anyway.
So cute.
Yeah.
Just so cute. I wish I knew how to do a screenshot. But of
This
course I
is
don't.
actual me time for me too.
Yeah.
My animals always bring me back to myself. Like there's something about taking, like, he gets me out of bed every day. I have to take him on a walk first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And, your day is beginning. Anyway, I could go on about the animals. I kid.
Well, I think animals, actually, there's a lot to be learned from our animals, which is they eat on a schedule. Like we don't think about like just feeding our dogs or cats. I mean, cats are a little different. We, generally speaking, we don't think about feeding our dogs just any old time. It's not like when we feel like it or when we remember. We remember, depending on the dog, generally they eat twice a day.
Right.
And we remember, like first thing in the morning and around dinner time, they get their meal. We don't forget to give them water. We leave them out a big bowl of clean water every day so that they can drink whenever they need to. We don't tell them not to nap when they're tired. We allow them to play. We encourage play. And yet we don't do those things for ourselves. It's so interesting, right?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I mean, or it's not. I mean, it's so interesting that we are so aware of that with them and yet don't give ourselves that sort of same thing.
Yeah.
And they're just pure love. Like just unconditional.
So before I lose you, because I don't want to keep you longer than an hour, tell me the tour, the 2 podcasts, the pilot season that you're in the middle of.
There's stuff happening. Definitely busy.
Yeah. What else are you excited about?
I don't think I can talk about that yet.
Don't talk about that yet.
Yeah, but developing a show that has had some very exciting movement lately. And I feel like I'm totally missing something, but I'm not. I feel like I have been in an interesting space lately of like, there are these other things. It used to just be I'm doing the show or I'm acting or whatever. And now it's kind of cool to have these other things happening and going on. So,
well, I think you've just expanded your role. I think before you probably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me, but for 20 some years, you were an actress.
Yeah.
And are an actress. I mean, that hasn't changed. Yeah. But now you're a podcast host and now you're a live entertainer as well. And now you're a producer and you are like wearing so many more hats, and that's got to be so much fun.
It is. It really is. I also think it's a really fun time right now. Okay, I feel like when I first started and even throughout my career, there was a little bit of like, you're an actress and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And this idea that you could be an actress, a comedian, a host, an author, have a food line. Like I look at people like the Joel McHale's and the Michelle Buteaus and like the people who are just like doing all of it.
Yeah.
Anything goes. Use all of your talents. Anything you can do. If it's an idea, is great. You think of it like it's all kind of accepted and encouraged now, even where it used to just be like, oh, if you were an actor, hosting might be selling out a little bit. Or if you were a host, you may not be taken seriously as an actor.
Right.
And, and now it's like, I feel
the
like
lines are so blurred.
Yes. In a great way.
An awesome way.
Talent is actually being supported on every front. If it's like, 2024 is kind of my year of just yes. So I'm excited to just say yes and see where that goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So would it be possible to say that you're trying to get into that same frame of mind you had when you were 15 years old and you picked up that card from that talent agent and decided just to call 3 years later and see what was possible.
Yes. Don't overwhelm yourself with step 30 when you're just on step 1. Like just take the step and say yes. And then take the next step and say yes. And take the next step. Because I will immediately think of, I'll start putting like the obstacles in on the complete unknowns of things that are so far off in the whatever that I will overwhelm myself with that fear and then stop the momentum of what the green lights and the doors that are opening are already like that part that's happening. So
have you ever seen the meme or the photo or the cartoon of the two ladders side by side? And they're like 20 feet tall, the ladders, right? Like you don't see even the top of the ladder. It goes from the ground to the top. And one of the ladders, they're the same height. One of the ladders has like 4 steps, and the steps the space between them is taller than the person who's climbing the ladder. So there's literally no way to get to the next step. Mm-hmm. And the other ladder, which is the same height, has like 100 steps, and they're really tiny.
Yeah.
And the metaphor, of course, being just take the baby steps. Yeah. You'll end up at the same place, but you don't have to take these big leaps that are not possible because you just need to keep stepping forward or up.
Listen to Jackie, everybody. You are like you walk your talk. Is that right? Talk. What? How does that go?
Walk my talk?
Meaning you talk meaning like what you preach, you are of that. Like what you talk about, what you study, what you work, like you live that. Like you are the living version of that. But I love the ladder thing. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you a picture of it. Thank you for this interview. I so loved spending an hour with you. You are awesome, as always. Awesome. And so for those of you who want to stay in touch with Maggie, I want you to either listen to The Psychologists Are In or to Me Time, or find her on the road with Tim Amundsen as they do their psych tour or Psychologists Are In tour.
Yes.
Or look for her in the next series that she will be in, which hopefully she'll announce in the next month or 2.
Yes.
And
let's just say I will announce.
You will. And where can they follow you on social media?
At Mags Lawson is my Instagram. And then I have a Me Time with Maggie on Instagram, at Me Time with Maggie, and then at The Psychologists Are In. Any of those you can find, and also find the links for the episodes. Jackie, you're the greatest. Thank you so much. And thank you for promoting all this stuff. Everybody needs to listen to Jackie's podcast as well, which you are right now, but like tell everybody.
You're awesome. You are awesome. Well, thank you again. And I am going to see you very soon because we're going to have lunch this week. And so we're going to click off this recording right now, and then we're going to plan our lunch.
Yay!
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Overthinker's Guide to Joy. If you're enjoying these episodes, please subscribe or follow this podcast so you can always be in the know when the next episode drops. If you would like to learn more about working with me as a coach, you can connect with me through my website at jackiedegrenis.com. That's JACKIEDECRINIS.com.